Oh, I'm Benedict.
Yes. What's your full name?
No. Mark Thomas McConnell.
Benedict Mark Thomas McConnell. What's your nickname?
No. Stop it.
We're not going to go there.
We're not going to go there. Okay. I'm Sophia Dunn. Diana Sophia Ergan Dunn. My nickname is Gizmo.
And I'm Mark Dunn. 53? Am I 53? No, I'm only
Not
52.
yet.
52.
You'll be 53 in November.
52. And I'm a psychotherapist. Now, the Bridge is the psychotherapy service that we run up in London. There's about 10 therapists who work with us.
How long have you been running?
10 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I was in the health service for 20 years at Guy's Hospital, and
Yeah, I was in the health service for a little while at Guy's and at St. Tommy's and at Lewisham Hospital.
before that I ran a building firm for a while. I was a school teacher for a while, toured in a rock and roll band for a while.
Yeah, and before I became a psychotherapist, I was in marketing. I was a marketing director for a telecommunications firm in Canada. And before that, I was a photographer, and before that I was in the theatre.
And I've been at school most of my life.
Most of your
Absolutely.
life.
What are your interests? That horrible question now. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Science, maths, music, history, I think.
Yeah, those seem
English.
to be your favorite subjects. Science mostly. I think we have a questioning life, don't we?
We do, we question.
And our dinner time conversations, while they may be hilarious, are
And quite inappropriate at most occasions.
are mostly about, keeping the questioning alive. It's a kind of fun skepticism, I think, that informs our household. And it's not just the skepticism, it's not the negative part of it, is it? It's a kind of wanting to know what things are about.
The answer to most of the questions now is Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And that's about...
It's a new religion, isn't it? The great god Wiki. I believe he's a Hawaiian god.
Wiki, yeah,
of all
sounds
knowledge.
Hawaiian. On the one hand, I think we denigrate playfulness as being childish. But as a psychologist, playfulness is the way we learn. And that's a really big deal. I used to be a play therapist. And play is the way children and animals learn. So in a way, it might be lighthearted, but it's absolutely loaded in terms of becoming a well-rounded human being. That the more we're allowed to experiment with things, the more we're allowed to be, as Mark says, fluid with the way we think about things, the bigger our minds are allowed to get.
Probably about 90% of the books I read are fantasy or sci-fi. So, but I still like to ask questions. I can be quite skeptical.
Yeah.
I think that fantasy doesn't. If you, as long as you don't believe it, so to speak, as long as you don't completely let it get under your skin, so to speak, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't change your reasoning.
Well, plus it's all
a lot of
magical.
fun. Yeah, it's all.
I think Roald Dahl is one of the most magical people in the world. He's also one of the biggest skeptics.
Well, I suppose it's a question for me. It's important to distinguish between, the capacity to think and the need to believe. I mean, I think my understanding of what heads us in a humanist direction is free thinking. That one is free to use one's mind in all kinds of ways, and imagination is one of the ways in which the mind expresses itself. Beliefs always close down that freedom. You're not. If you believe in something, then somehow you've decided that you can't play with it anymore. It has to become a sort of a fixture,
That's true.
as opposed to a flowing position which one can mess around with. You know, it's a fixed role as opposed to being able to move,
Something fluid.
to morph between many roles. And I think free thinking is absolutely under attack in the modern world, and that people's minds. I mean, I think one of the great freedoms of Western liberal democracy is the freedom to own your own mind, which in many countries and societies, it's not possible to be non-aligned.
They tend to be quite trivial.
We just disagreed over coffee. You like this industrial sludge.
Yeah.
You like proper coffee.
I mean, there was another one where I think it was you didn't think fish had tongues or something, and then I disagreed, and then we looked it up on the internet, and it showed some fish have tongues and
some fish don't have
They
tongues.
definitely have lips, according to the Chinese menu.
Absolutely, fish lips.
So do we disagree about positions then on things? Like
Yeah,
believing
Benedict disagrees with us.
politically or spiritually or religiously?
I asked you if you wanted to learn to meditate or take the 3 refuges, and you said no. Why don't you talk about that? Because we respect that difference.
He just thinks you're a Buddhist old hippie, that's all.
He's not far off that.
I don't know. I don't. It's not.
You just don't want to join any.
No, I don't. I like being until I can really make my mind up. And
Yeah.
I'm quite happy to be.
Non-aligned.
Yes.
Yeah. We've chosen to align ourselves very mildly with a certain way of thinking, but that doesn't mean Benedict has to. You know, I don't police Benedict's internet usage. Now, there's going to be a lot of parents that might be watching this that say that's absolutely criminal. But what we do around the dinner table is to encourage Benedict to have some judgment.
Which,
And the only way you can do that is by
so
having a
remember
conversation.
that thing about the animals. Remember you said, come and look at this website.
Oh yeah, and then it was.
And then at first it was funny, and then it got cruel, and then it got really gross and grotesque. And I said, look, no, we'd stay away from this website. It's inviting you in with this stuff that just seems silly and funny, and then once you get in there, there's this really unspeakable cruelty going on. We talked about what made it cruel, didn't we? And we together. And I turn my back on Benedict, and he'll have his own judgment. He doesn't like cruel things.
I mean, yeah, there was. I mean, now I've learned to completely ignore every single pop-up that comes up, just because it's. Because if it. I think if it's a pop-up, then it's obviously there because nobody is going to go looking for something like that, so they have to force it on you. There are some things that I will probably never tell them. But
Quite right, I don't want to know.
So. Yeah. There's some things you just don't want to know about your kid.
You're allowed your own secret life, you know.
That's right.
But I'm not worried that they're going to pry into my life and know every single secret that I have.
You have
Because
secrets?
Tell me, what kind of secrets do you have?
Because they've got better things to do.
Yeah, he's got parents who have a life, right?
Yeah, we've got to spend a lot of time hiding our Easter eggs.
That's right.
I am Beckett, but
Well, you
they
can't help
still
it.
have better things to do than spend 100% of their time listening to absolutely everything that I have to say or not have to say.
And vice versa. You've got better things to do than listen to us all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. We're All Doomed.
Well, as soon as anyone makes a prediction about the future, it's automatically bound to not happen.
That's true.
Well, I think there's a
That calls for chocolate.
there's a paradigm war going on. And I think the rise of fundamentalism is is the biggest problem that will have to be resolved, if it can be resolved, in the next 50 years. Because the inequalities in the world, have become extreme, and that simply has to be reflected in the extreme ways in which people are in the world. And that's a huge sort of psychoeducational project, which I don't think has even really begun. It's like in Iran, the moderates who have access to Western television and the internet, they end up in a terrible conflict with the hardliners who don't want
Any questions?
who are trying to maintain themselves in power. Those conflicts. I mean, Carl Jung said it would take 1,000 years, for the world to get anywhere near becoming, human beings around the world to be free and self-aware. And I think he's probably right. I just think there's an enormous century of conflict around how what it is to be a human being. Human beings are always divided between getting their wagons in a line heading across the horizon into the new, or getting terrified and getting their wagons in a circle and getting stuck.
Yeah.
And that problem, that tension between those two positions, is always with us.
Sometimes I'm all doom and gloom, and I think that in terms of evolutionary biology that we've encroached on too many habitats, and that like Jonathan Swift says, we're a race of odious, pernicious vermin that are going to, by our very numbers, end up either through an epidemic or a catastrophic war or some other form of, or global warming, are going to manage to exterminate ourselves. That sort of paranoid view occupies my mind sometimes. But then there's like this chap on the internet wanting the grand piano, or there's people like Richard Dawkins or Harris or Lewis Thomas, or any one of a number of people you can point to who are thinking outside the box, who have playful, hopeful visions of humanity. So for me, the future's a mixed bag. And I'm just sorry I'm not going to be around to see it all. I'm very, very, very curious about what's going to happen now.
I think quite a lot of people are into the forecast that there'll be death and misery and everybody will be sad. But then there's also the opposite, where there will be robots that do everything for you and stuff like that. But I think probably life may be much the same as it is now. Maybe a little bit different in some ways, the same in others. But society has changed a lot from medieval times to postmodern times. But I think that there's only so far you can go before things start to either break down, or you find a state where you just stay there almost. You stop, or I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I'm listening. I think it's interesting what you're saying.
Where you stop evolving emotionally or physically, or even reverse and go back.
Oh, so you think there's a ceiling, or we'll go back into a regression?
Yeah, we could possibly, we reach a point where we just go back on ourselves. We revert to the more primitive states.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a
It's been
delight.
really nice to meet you. Yeah.